and we are welcoming you to our sixth edition of our Journey to Juneteenth series. Yes, we've done this 5 previous years consecutively, and this is year 6. And our theme this year is we are honoring the rich history of Black farmers and their contribution to shaping agriculture in the United States. Before we jump in, we do have some agreements that we would like for everyone to try to adhere to so that we can have a really robust and quality experience this morning. So, the first thing is we encourage you to use the chat just like you're doing right now. You can use the chat, add comments, you can raise questions that you have throughout the presentation. We'll be taking the questions at our Q&A period a little bit later. So if you do have questions as we go along, make sure to drop them in the chat. And then in chat, how you're engaging in there and posting in there, just be aware and assume the good intentions of everyone and use some respectful language and tone. Try not to type in all caps. All caps means you're yelling. Now, some people, that's how you do it, and that's okay. But in this type of setting, when you're in all caps, that can be perceived a little bit aggressive. So try to tone those caps down. But we encourage you to use the chat to engage that way. If you are looking to use closed caption, you should be able to click the 3 dots that are on your screen or more if you see that, and then you'll be able to enable captions from there. And you probably already saw the notification about the recording for this session, and it has started already. Before I introduce our moderator, we have a couple of polls that we wanted to put out there to you all this morning. So, we are going to have our first poll come up. The first poll is, how many years have you participated in this Journey to Juneteenth program with the AARP California State Office? If it's all 5 previous sessions, that is great. If this is your first time, you can select that. If you've done more than 5, I mean more than one, but not all 5, then you can select that as well. Go ahead and respond to our poll. How many years have you participated in this series? We'll give about 5 more seconds for folks. Get those fingers going. 3, 2, 1, and we will end the poll. First timers, wow, 95%. That is significant. Thank you all for taking time out of your morning to join us. And also shout out to those who've been more than once, but not all 5. A couple people that have been here all 5 previous sessions. That's pretty cool. That's pretty significant. Another question that we have, our poll question number 2. Select everything that comes from farming in our daily lives. So we have food, wine, candles, lotions, vaccines, and you can select more than one choice. So what do you think comes from farming in our daily lives? It's not a trick question. All right, we seeing a clear-cut lead right now. We got give everybody about 5 more seconds to vote. 3, 2, 1. And by far, food, yes. And then we got vaccines, a distant second, wine, candles, and lotions. And actually, all of these come from farming, which, probably hear a little bit about later on. So thank you all for participating in our quick polls this morning, or this afternoon, depending on where you are in the country. We'll revisit another poll at the end of today's session. But throughout the event today, we will remind you to participate in a chat where you can, again, raise questions, share any thoughts or anything that you have, give shout outs to each other. But we're eager to get started this morning with our moderator who will lead our conversation today. As some of you may recall those who have been to other sessions in the past years, Dr. Tanai Jackson has helped lead our Juneteenth conversation the last 5 years. This is year 6. And if you're interested in viewing those conversations, because I saw that in the comments earlier, you should see a link in the chat where you will be taken to our YouTube page. And you'll be able to see that those previous recordings and get caught up there. And I think Marissa's putting it in the chat now. If you're not familiar with AARP, we are the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan membership organization. We empower people to choose how they live as they age, and we really do encourage people to age with confidence. With a nationwide presence, AARP strengthens communities and advocates for what matters most to more than 100 million Americans 50 plus and their families, including things like health security, financial resilience, social connections, and more. And with that, now I am going to introduce our host for today, Dr. Tanai Jackson. Dr. Jackson is an associate professor um, of history at California State Polytechnic University in San Luis Obispo. She's a historian of the Civil War and Reconstruction eras, and she earned her PhD at the University of Maryland, College Park. Her most recent essay, Mary Ellen Pleasant, Capitalist, Mapping Black Women's Economic Power onto the California Colored Conventions, will be released this year, and her current research is on the early 20th century California Black farming town of Allensworth. Dr. Jackson is a native of San Jose, and we are excited to have her, and I am excited to turn everything over to Dr. Tanai Jackson.
Thank you, Anton. Thank you. Before I get started, I want to once again call your attention to the chat. We encourage everyone to post questions there and engage there throughout the session. So if you have any questions, just type them in the chat while we're going, and we'll try to get to those towards the end. Okay, I'm going to launch a presentation for you all. Oh. Bear with me for one moment while I get this share going. Okay, can everybody see the slides?
Yep. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, this is such a rich topic. I'm so happy to be talking to you guys about this today. I could go on and on about this, but today you're only going to get a brief snippet from me so that we have enough time to talk to our guests about the topic today. Consider this a small overview of the history of Black farming in the United States. Okay. In 1865, after the closing battles of the Civil War and the passage of the 13th Amendment, Garrison Fraser met with General William Tecumseh Sherman and Secretary of War Edwin Stanton. And he told them that land was freedom. Fraser, born enslaved in Granville, North Carolina, he had purchased the freedom of he and his wife in 1857 for $1,000 in gold and silver. He was now 67 years old and part of a delegation of 40 ministers who met with representatives of the United States government to define freedom. What would it look like? Would formerly enslaved people be citizens? Would they have equal rights under the law? Would they vote? Would Black people be able to own land? The abolition of slavery forced the United States to define freedom. These Black delegates knew what it meant to them and the communities they represented. So when Secretary Stanton asked, "What do you want for your own people?" they answered, "Land." They proposed that the United States government, having won the war, confiscate a 400,000-acre strip of land from Charleston, South Carolina, to the St. Johns River in Florida, and including the Sea Islands and those who worked the land. The result of that meeting was Special Field Order 15, or what has commonly become known as 40 Acres and a Mule. One of the delegates, Ulysses L. Houston, organized 1,000 people onto Skidway Island, Georgia, where they established a self-governing community. They elected Houston the Black governor. By June, 40,000 people had settled 400,000 acres. But by fall, Lincoln had been assassinated, and President Andrew Johnson overturned the order and reinstated the land to the previous owners, despite the treason that had gotten the land confiscated in the first place. Still, land remained a priority. For 19th century Americans, land was independence. The concept developed out of land ownership and subsistence farming. Independence was the ability to live without any dependence on anyone else. A paycheck dependent on the person who cut the check. Subsistence land was the 19th century American dream. Of course, the nation has changed since then, but at that time, Americans dreamed of the yeoman farmer and independent land. After abolition, Black people were quick to shake off the yoke of bondage, but many felt deep connection to the land. More than 90% of enslaved people had worked in agriculture. Many had worked the same land for generations. Ancestors were buried deep in the soil. Memories rested in trees and streams. The gardens that fed mothers now fed daughters, and so on and so on. Even a system like sharecropping, which ultimately locked many agricultural workers into poverty, started as an attempt to stay on the land they knew and own a share of the crop they raised. But the war after the war was intent on finding new ways to recreate slavery under another name. Working the land was one thing, owning the land was quite another. Nevertheless, in the 50 years after abolition, Black people acquired almost 20 million acres of land. One out of every 4 Black folks in ag owned land they worked on by 1910. By 1920, there were 925,000 Black-owned farms in the United States, 14% of all U.S. farms. This boom in land ownership in the decades following slavery employed many strategies. The 1866 Homestead Act became available to Black Americans in 1868 with the ratification of the 14th Amendment. About 70% settled in communities with other Black farmers. Choosing this route, Black homesteaders pooled together to form farming colonies, as they called them. The most well-known were Nicodemus, Kansas, seen in this slide here, Deerfield, Colorado, Sully County, South Dakota, DeWitt, Nebraska, Empire, Wyoming, and Blackdom, New Mexico, although less than 6,000 Black homesteaders ever received federal plots. One of the most ambitious of these so-called colonies was right here in California. Allensworth was a self-governed, all-Black farming town. This land was purchased, not homesteaded. In 1904, Colonel Allen Allensworth, Civil War veteran, began scouting for farmland on which to create a Black collective agricultural community. The collective hoped to escape Jim Crow segregation, exclusion, and violence. The idea was to establish a Black farming community and sell to the growing Black urban populations in Los Angeles and the San Francisco Bay Area. At first, it wasn't even easy to find a seller willing to sell to Black settlers, but the Pacific Farming Company offered land at $100 an acre, triple what they had charged white settlers who were sold land for the nearby town of Alpha. In 1908, the town of Allensworth was established on 4,000 acres, about 300 miles north of Los Angeles. The town made national news and attracted Black settlers from across the nation. They too headed west with dreams of freedom and independence. One of the reasons Black farmers were so successful in the decades following emancipation was agricultural knowledge they had built over generations of agricultural labor and management. One of the ways they harnessed the power of that knowledge was through the formation of Black agricultural colleges. The list here is just some of those established for Black ag in the 19th century. Agricultural and mechanical colleges like Tuskegee trained students in agricultural management and innovation. Tuskegee became world-renowned as an American ag school, and many Black farming communities who moved west looked to replicate Tuskegee's success. In fact, Allensworth hoped to establish an ag school in California and promoted itself as a future Tuskegee of the West. Despite all the gains, the 20th century brought new challenges. Black farmers declined by 98% over the course of the 20th century. Between 1910 and 1997, during the height of segregation, Black-owned farmland was slashed by 90%. The total value of farmland lost since in the past 100 years has been estimated at $326 billion. Most of the land losses were in the South and right here in California. Despite being 14% of the US population, Black Americans now own less than 1% of the nation's farmland, constitute 2% of farmers, and 1% of rural landowners. How did this decline happen? While the causes are many, some stand out. In the early 20th century, Black landowners were targeted for lynchings by white neighbors and violent white mobs, terrorizing the family and other nearby Black landowners into leaving their property, which was then auctioned at below market value. This terrorism caused a Black refugee crisis in the United States and drove the Great Migration, where 6 million people left the South, the vast majority of whom were those who had gained land in these very decades after emancipation. Disenfranchisement that accompanied segregation also has a major effect on policy. At the local, state, and federal levels, officials used things like eminent domain to procure Black land for public purposes, compensating them again below market value. Government programs created to assist farmers, like those implemented during the New Deal, were designed to be run locally by elected county committees. And when you have been stripped of the vote by backhanded tactics and terrorism, that equals exclusion. County committees directed money in the form of subsidies, loans, and other financial assistance away from Black farmers. USDA loan discrimination, which has been well documented, has taken many forms, the most obvious being outright denial of loans based on race. Another common tactic is to delay the approval and disbursement of loans until planting season was over. Farming is a time-sensitive business, forcing Black farmers to turn to local banks with high interest rates to finance their planting, leading to massive debt and, in many cases, eventual foreclosure and sale of the land. In some cases, there has been direct collusion between local bankers, USDA officials, and white farmers to drive farmers off the land. Another tactic is to falsify farm statistics to record lower yields, which would be used as justification, again, for loan denial. Sometimes, even if a loan is approved, the funds were never distributed. These policies hurt all small farmers in America, but because most Black farmers were small farmers, it resulted in the loss of 2/3 of Black farmland between 1950 and 1974. One of the biggest causes of Black land loss has been the heirs property phenomenon. 81% of Black landowners after the Civil War died without wills, weary of government and lawyers from outside their communities. Without an estate plan, descendants inherit an interest in the land, and the property becomes heirs property. Since heirs property lacks official titles, heirs cannot get mortgages, make substantial repairs on the property, apply for state and federal housing assistance, or apply for almost any USDA program. As the generations pass, the heirs' property interest is divided among an increasing number of heirs who are often spread out across the country, don't even know one another, or even know they own it. Under the law, one heir can request that the entire plot be auctioned, initiating a partition sale. Property developers use this legal loophole to their advantage, seeking out a distant relative who may not have even known they owned an interest and convincing them to sell it at far below market value. The developer, who now controls the interest in the land, brings the entire plot to auction, outbids the entire family, and gets the land. Nevertheless, during this time, Black agriculturalists devised new strategies and were instrumental in modern farming. Legendary civil rights activist Fannie Lou Hamer, herself a former sharecropper, founded the Freedom Farm Cooperative on 40 acres of prime Mississippi Delta land. Hamer viewed co-ops as the foundation of political power because food, Hamer argued, was a political weapon. And it was a lesson she learned early when at 13, in the midst of the Great Depression, a saboteur snuck onto her family's property in Sunflower County, Mississippi, and poisoned their livestock. It was a familiar tale, and exactly the type of terrorism that drove an exodus of 6 million Black folks from the South from 1910 to 1970, the same period of time as the dispossession. Hamer's family became sharecroppers. You see, civil rights was also about the land. The Freedom Farm Co-op planted cash crops like soybeans and cotton to pay taxes and administrative expenses. The rest of the land was sowed with vegetables like cucumbers, peas, beans, squash, and collard greens, all of which was distributed back to those who worked the co-op. Born in 1915 in Calhoun County, Alabama, Booker T. Whatley became an agricultural professor at Tuskegee University. Dr. Whatley was a sustainable agricultural pioneer and continued the old dream, establishing a Black agrarian middle class. After graduating from Alabama Agricultural and Mechanical College, Whatley was drafted into the Army during the Korean War. There, he managed a hydroponic farm in Japan that provided safe and nutritious foods for the troops. After the war, Whatley earned a doctorate in horticulture in 1957, and at 73 years old, he returned to school again to get a law degree as a way to protect Black farmers and fight against the dispossession. Because Black farmers were routinely denied loans and grants by the federal government, costing them land, money, and agency, Whatley was focused on ways to help them keep their land while also supporting their local Black communities. And in the 1960s, he began educating folks on pick your own farms and what he called, quote, clientele membership clubs, which entailed customers paying upfront for a season of food as a way of guaranteeing business. In other words, Whatley created the modern day CSA, or Community Supported Agriculture. The Clientele Membership Club is the lifeblood of the whole setup. It enables the farmer to plan production, anticipate demand, and, of course, have a guaranteed market, Whatley told Mother Earth News during an interview in 1982. However, he continued, that means the grower had better work just as diligently at establishing and maintaining the club as at producing the crops. Put it this way, if you fail to promote your club, something terrible happens. Nothing. Today, CSAs are a staple in the business of farming. Nowadays, modern agricultural scholars are asking if Black farming is on the rise. Now, there's some skepticism over these charts I'm showing you right now, so I've accounted for it there. Many suspect that recent USDA numbers may be skewed due to changes in census collection, but the numbers still seem to show a slight rise, and every acre counts. But these days, I do see Black farmers all over social media. I buy my Booker boxes through CSAs and follow high-end boutique farmers on Instagram. There seem to be new spaces for ag education and internships. Black farming collectives and farmers like Karen Washington are out here working against food apartheid. Books like Black Farming, like Farming While Black, discuss the modern Black experience and the desire of many to return to the land. Documentary films like Gaining Ground and Seeds are walking away with film awards, and people seem to want to be connected to their food and to their medicine and to the land. So, is there a modern Black farming movement? Do present day Black farmers carry the same dream as Garrison, Fraser, Booker T. Whatley, and Fannie Lou Hamer? Well, that is what I want to talk about today on this Juneteenth with folks who are doing the work. So let me end my presentation and bring in my guest today so that we can have this conversation about Black farming in the 2020s, a century since the peak of Black farming. All right. Let me bring in my panel here today. We have a very special panel who's going to help us dig deep into our conversation. I also want to remind us that AARP remains focused on livable communities for all ages and across all communities. To learn more about this, visit www.aarp.org/livable, where you will learn about 9 domains of livability. A number of those domains are behind our conversation this morning. So let's meet our panelists. It's great to have you both here today. I'm really excited about this conversation, and I'd really like to get us up into the 21st century and talk about this. So first, let me welcome Angela McCrae, who is Executive Director of the Association of African American Vintners, the founder of Uncorked and Cultured, a state ambassador at Ovid Napa Valley, and so much more. Welcome, Angela.
Oh my God, Dr. Jackson, you did a phenomenal, thorough presentation. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And good morning, everyone. I hear we have a jam-packed group here and audience. My name is Angela McCrae, and I actually came into wine through culture. But I stayed because of what I found underneath it, and that's the soil, the stories of the people who shaped it. And, it's just amazing through my work with Uncorked and Cultured as a founder. It was started as a platform really dedicated to connecting Black and underrepresented communities to wine, the people behind it, and how to enjoy the lifestyle that belongs to us all. So, as mentioned, I do serve as a state ambassador also at Ovid Napa Valley, which is one of the most prestigious estates on Pritchard Hill, known for its distinct terroir, precision farm making techniques, and intentionality in winemaking. But I've also spent the last 5 years as executive director of the Association of African American Vintners. And this is an organization that exists to make sure growers, makers, and entrepreneurs have a seat at the table. And this is important because we are a part of the supply chain and we are, most importantly, number one consumers when you think about our country. And wine is one of the most land dependent industries in the world. Now, because here's what most people don't realize, the vineyard is a farm. And wine is different than other beverages that we drink. And the winemaker is a farmer and a scientist. So when we talk about Black land ownership in America, we cannot separate the field from what we enjoy at dinner and celebrate at our special occasions, right? Because it's all a part of the memory, that core memory. The same systems that pushed Black families off of their land, sharecropping, redlining, discriminatory USDA lending, everything that Dr. Jackson wonderfully presented to us are the same systems that created the access gap we see in farming and wine agriculture today. Less than 1% of American wine brands are Black owned, even less own a supply chain, and most importantly, the farmland. And that's not a coincidence. It truly is a consequence to all the dismantling that's happened in our country. So the work I do isn't just cultural, it's truly economic. So through the Association of African American Vintners, we've secured over $300,000 in educational and programmatic funding for Black wine businesses. And I also launched the organization's first member grant program, distributing $50,000 directly to 10 small Black-owned wine businesses across the country. Was one of my proudest accomplishments. And when I started Uncorked and Cultured, I built it around a global directory of over 200 Black-owned wine businesses. It's called the Sip Consciously Directory. And this was my solution, which I felt was super easy and simple. And that's connecting the communities and the consumers directly to the Black wine entrepreneurs and makers. And now I'm taking that work a step far further because I realize there's so much disparity still. And I'm in the early stages of launching a 501(c)(3) public charity foundation really dedicated to the growers and makers in craft beverages such as wine, beer, and spirits because the infrastructure gap is real and someone has to build the bridge, right? And raise the necessary funding and resources for transformation. So today on Juneteenth, happy Juneteenth, everybody. I just want us to hold two truths at once. Black people have always worked this land, and I hope to share some of the history of Black wine producers, Black farmers, and Black people. We deserve to own it and continue our ancestors' legacy. So the vine doesn't forget the soil that it came from, and neither should we. So I'm honored to be a part of the conversation, especially amongst the distinguished Dr. Bill Relaford and also Dr. Jackson.
Thank you so much. The vine doesn't forget the soil it came from. I love that. I love that. Okay, thank you, Angela. Next, I am happy to welcome Dr. Bill Relaford, who is a medical doctor with a unique twist through Bloom Ranch of Acton. Dr. Relaford, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. And Dr. Jackson, your presentation was absolutely incredible.
Thank you.
I
Thank
learned
you.
so much about agriculture, which has really in the contributions that African Americans have made, and some of the things that we may not appreciate every day. And Angela McCrae, and thank you so much for your presentation, introduction remarks. I'm a podiatric surgeon by professional training. I prevent amputations in those people that are the most risk, both domestically and internationally. I've done some things in West Africa, South Pacific Islands, South America, Latin America, trying to come up with strategies to prevent amputations in those people who are most at risk. In during my early stages of my career, I saw a disturbing trend. People were diabetic, African American, and recommended for amputation. So I started seeing this trend, and I was wondering, why are we seeing this trend that I think most people were not really paying close attention to? And so I wrote a book called Five Colors a Day to Better Health, because all my patients that were the healthiest ate five colors. And I know the medical community likes to make things complicated. So my philosophy is don't count calories, count colors. So that led me to, when I was doing health fairs, we have all the booths there. We've been to the health fair, they're checking blood pressures and diabetes. And sometimes the people running the health fairs are not the healthiest, and they're eating hot dogs and fried chicken while they're at the health fair. So I said, something is wrong with this picture. I said, let's bring the farmers market at the health fair in the middle of the screenings. And so some of the organizers said, let's not do that. They're never going to buy those vegetables. But sure enough, there was not one vegetable left. And I contacted all the Black farmers that I knew. And the Black farmers bought the vegetables at the health fair. So I was able to marry the traditional health screenings with the farmers market. And then that being said, Bloom Ranch became available to me and Angela. We had a talk, because I own a winery as well in Ojai called Casa Loche. So we'll talk about that. I need to get some of your knowledge and expertise on that. So Bloom Ranch, I found out later, is the largest Black-owned farm in LA County with over 250 acres. Wow. So now my new motto is, I just don't write prescriptions, I grow them now. I grow them straight up from the ground. So this is leading into my food as medicine. So now, rather than just talking about five colors, I'm actually growing them. So I have strategic partnerships with UCLA and MLK, where we have prescriptive boxes based upon medical condition. We have what we call a stone box, all the brassicas that can prevent the development of kidney stones, the broccolis and cauliflowers and snap peas and things like that, to deliver that to patients. Because what we find with some of our urologists, they'll tell the patients what to eat, not to eat, but it's a disconnect between the clinic and when they get home. So we're bridging that gap. We also have what we call a pressure box, those vegetables that can naturally help to reduce or decrease your blood pressure. And we also, of course, have a wound care box. I've been able to heal wounds that were deemed as unhealable by just changing the diet. So Bloom Ranch has been at the forefront, and we believe a pilot in showing how food really is medicine.
Excellent. I told you all we had a good one today. Okay, let's dig in with some questions. I'm going to keep going with that one. Welcome everybody, and thank you both for being here so much. Let's just start off a little bit, basic here with why agriculture? What made each of you decide to work with agriculture? I mean, Dr. Relaford, I think you did a good job of explaining the health interest that got you into this. But also, why work with the land? What is it about, agriculture and wanting to be right there on the farm doing the work that, attracted each of you to this work?
Well, I would say for me, my background is completely on the opposite side of this, spectrum from land and agriculture, media and film and things of that sort. But when I started doing the work with Uncorked and Cultured and understanding the challenges and the disparities with the Black winemakers, I actually joined an apprenticeship program to come to Napa and to learn. At the time, I was in Harlem, New York. So I was in the city. I'm used to living in the city all my life. Grew up in Washington, D.C. and Maryland. And I realized that if I wanted to really make change and make impact, I needed to literally get my hands dirty, right? Literally, physically, all of that. And so I had the chance to run around vineyards in Russian River and Alexander Valley and Sonoma County, and it was tough. it's hard work, but I will say it was fulfilling. And I still miss just being out by myself amongst Mother Nature and seeing the grape process. So luckily, I do still work at a vineyard, so I do still get to see that progression and see the beauty that Mother Nature provides. But I think it was more so inspired through wanting to have impact and make that connection. So audiences, consumers can really understand the impact of the work I do on the media side.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you.
And for me, I was born in Oklahoma, a little small town called Wagner, in between Muskogee and Tulsa. And I remember as a young boy, my grandparents and my aunts and uncles, they grew just about everything. And, onions by the side of the house, sweet potatoes, chickens, eggs, and things like that. And I actually made my first quarter picking cotton, believe it or not. I'm about 5 or 6 years old. So it's kind of in my DNA. So when my family moved to LA, of course, the grass is always greener on the other side, of course. And so now I've made full circle back to the land. And there's a lot of benefits that, I think a lot of people are not appreciating. So Angela, you talked about, how you feel when you're in the land. So, there's a lot of mental health benefits by working the land. And studies have shown that people that do get outside and are present, what do we do with a lot of our young men at Bloom Ranch? We're very proud of hiring some men that were perhaps maybe considered unemployable. They come out to the farm, and my philosophy is put that cell phone down. If you want to chat with somebody, you can chat with Dr. Rutherford. Don't click on anything. Don't swipe on anything. And then you find that they disconnect themselves from technology and reconnect themselves with nature. And you can see the fact that some of these young men who've never, ever been affirmed in their lives can say, look what I grew. And they come with such great pride and just so much enthusiasm by showing I created something that the world can appreciate. So for me, this has been, as I mentioned, a full circle moment. And as a podiatric surgeon, and I have an appreciation of controlling my own nutritional destiny, at the tender age of 66. I have to practice, what I preach. And so, the land has been quite phenomenal. And Bloom Ranch, and we believe, is a pilot for what other Black farmers can do to maintain sustainability.
Wow. That's awesome.
I love that. Yeah. And you heard it from a doctor here, folks. If you put down the screen and get out onto the land, you'll be doing yourself a favor.
and studies have shown that when you get your hands in dirt, there's good microbes and there's good bacteria. So all the people that are the germaphobes, not every germ is bad for you.
Yes.
You need to get into the dirt to boost your immune system. That is why people that sometimes in the Amazon, they can get they have all the little bugs that they have made their immune system stronger. So I really encourage a lot of our people to get out there in nature. You don't have to have 250 acres. It could be a plot, could be just a little garden, something small. You will see the incredible benefits with that.
And could I just mention, just for context, so Dr. Rutherford, when I was living in LA, I actually did this program. It was called the Culinary Health Improvement Project, and it was all about diet, right? And that finding those natural nutrients, finding the minerality. And I realized that now here we are post-pandemic, and so many people, especially, Black farmers, have now come to the surface to educate us on the benefits. And I saw it firsthand through this 6-week program, how just eating farm to table, eating more plant-based and enriched food was really reversing the diabetic effects, high blood pressure, heart disease, all the things that have impacted our community most. And I just wanted to kind of shout you out because I've seen it firsthand. And I know.
Thank you so much. So, I wrote a book called The Real Pharmacy, Pharmacy. It's on the Bloom Ranch website. And my next book that's going to come out in about 2 weeks called Weapons of Mass Destruction, How the Fast Food Industry is targeting America's most vulnerable. And I talk about how our communities have been weaponized by systematically making it difficult for our communities to have access to fruits and vegetables. So I unpack all the chemicals that are there, and I talk about the solution too, and having access or some relationship to some kind of farm or farmers market or community gardens are the ways that we deal. So I know I don't want to move the questions any further, but my vision for Black farmers is to be a part of a broader conversation, not just about your collard greens, peaches, and apples, but can you develop a relationship with a healthcare clinic or a clinic in a prospective neighborhood so that your farm can be direct access to a doctor who wants to prescribe dietary changes and provide that gap. So how can Black farmers be a part of a bigger conversation other than here's my apples, oranges, or collard greens?
I love that. Can we keep going on this question about getting food out to people who need it? I think that this is important, right? And we've talked a lot about food apartheid. I think that's a good question and conversation that's going around in Black farming circles. During my own presentation, talk about how many people have moved away from rural communities. Do you have any advice for people who might want to start community gardens and urban centers and how to connect with medical care, connect this like urban garden and medical care in their own communities? What can we do?
Well, I just connected with the community of Black women here in Napa through Facebook, and there's
I love it.
So many Facebook groups. I just saw that there's this Facebook group focused on HBCU Divine Nine farming. There's a woman down in Atlanta who's doing some great work, Dr. Jamila Norman. She has the Patchwork City Farms where she's helping people develop their at-home farm and creating resources for the community there. Of course, farmers markets, right? You can always volunteer. I think that's always a good start just from a very small standpoint.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things we're doing at Bloom Ranch, we have a program called Roots Anywhere. And what Roots Anywhere is, we have the seeds, the little small starters, and also the soil. So we actually can package our own soil, because soil is not just about phosphorus, nitrogen, and potassium. You need all the microbes as well. We even have our soil has the worms. We have a whole composting system with the worms in it and things like that. So the soil has to be alive too. So we grow Roots Anywhere. We provide the seeds, the starters. We are a licensed nursery now, so we can actually show a lot of people how to grow or own their own farm, or their own plants, even if it's on the backboard of a porch. I remember my helpless patients. Sometimes they just had a collard green tree and a big flower pot, and they just pick those leaves off, and you get a good collard green tree, and you pick them and blanch them and freeze them. It can kind of keep you going quite a while. Even if you just supplement what you grow with what you buy, it doesn't have to be all of it, but I've seen some incredible medical breakthroughs with my patients that change their diets in supplementing what they grow with what they buy.
I love that. Thank you. In what ways do you think that policy and legislation create challenges and opportunities for Black farmers?
Oh, wow. Well,
I know
the Homestead Act of 1862, right? I mean,
right.
That gave cheap land to white recipients only. It also gave 160 acres of land in the Western Territory alone, right? And so it was only like what, $500, $160 acres for $500 back then. Now, that's some of the areas that we know most for Sonoma and Napa, some of the most expensive acreage that kind of goes over $100,000 per acre. So for the wine industry, by that time, it's like it created this huge divide. But if you think about when it was repealed in the 1976 era, 270 million acres had been transferred to 1.6 million people, and none of them look like us.
Okay. And on that note, when you talk about the legislative malfeasance that Black farmers have endured, even with some policies that may be favorable, the implementation of those policies, the political durability of those policies, sometimes, like you just mentioned, sometimes they are reversed. So is always the shifting sands and like trying to stack chairs on a ship. So I think that collectively, and I really strongly believe that if Black farmers really band together, for example, there's an organization called Black Soil Kentucky. You may have heard of Black Soil. They're doing an amazing job. In fact, we're hosting a summit at Bloom Ranch September 6th through 9th. Of course, along with Casa Loche and Bloom Ranch for 3 days, we'll be talking about some of the very things that we're talking about right here. So I want to put a plug in for that. So we do have a nice amount of respondents and attendance for that conference. In fact, I'll talk to you more about that, Dr. Jackson and Angela. Maybe we can join.
Oh, excellent. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. This is a sort of a big question, but I just want to hear what you guys think about this. Do you still think that independence is tied to land ownership in the United States?
I do. Absolutely. I mean, we could just see it firsthand. I think it is a big part of it. I mean, look at what all these big tech millionaire billionaires like Bill Gates. I mean, he like the largest owner of farmland in the world?
Yep. Yeah, that's wild.
Well, I think, even with me, you read about it, you hear about it, but when you are living and seeing with me as a landowner, both as one with a winery and a farm, 250 acres, I can see the independence because at my age, Dr. Jackson, I can't be hired and I can't be fired. So I'm unemployable. Right? I'm unemployable right now. So with land, you can't be hired, you can't be fired. But what I have been able to do with this independence is I hire a lot of my nephews. I have a ton of nephews that, some of them may not fit in a nice little box to go to a university, but the farm has been a great platform for me to train them up, get up early in the morning, to be present, to work, and to have in the mutual benefit of watching them transform. So that can only happen when you own land, and I'm the one that makes the decisions, and so that's on one side. And then with the patients, all of my patients every 2 weeks gets a Bloom Bounty box delivered to their home as a part of just being my patient. So that's independent. I don't have to vote on anything. In kind of a way, it is kind of a dictatorship. Yeah, I'm not voting on anything. So when you own land, you can wake up in the morning. So you know what? I feel like I'm going to grow this, and so we are growing the cowpea in Ohio, the cowpea that was brought over by the African slaves. We found that pea in Georgia, and so I grew it last year. And the farmers here said there's something, they didn't know anything about the pea. They said the way this plant is growing, we've never seen anything grow this fast and so resilient like this. They said, wow, the leaves are moving so fast compared to the other plants there. So I told them the history of how resilient the cowpea is derived in West Africa. Well, we took that pea and we have a Sunday brunch at Bloom Ranch, the Bloom Ranch Sunday Jazz Brunch, and we're very proud that this has become a very highly coveted event in Southern California, even across the country. Well, we had the caterer serve some of the cowpeas. The reaction was phenomenal about what kind of pea is this. The flavor is so rich, so different. So there is, when you talk about independence, I decided I want to grow the cowpea. I didn't have to ask anybody permission.
Yeah. And I just want to acknowledge what you're saying too, because when you have these ancient indigenous, seeds and nutrient dense crops, it's something that actually does more healing than what's being mass produced using pesticides. Like you have control not just of your selection, but of your farming techniques and and I think that's something that we also need to talk about from an agricultural standpoint is how as consumers, we don't really know what we're putting in our body when we go to the grocery store every day, right? But when you
Right.
do get a box from a local farmer or like from Bloom Ranch or somewhere, or you grow it in your own yard, you know how nutrient dense it is. You know that it's going to actually heal and not make you sick because it has, pesticides or other things added to it. And those indigenous crops that aren't the normal stuff that we get here has more nutrient density to it that's going to do some healing that you would never know exists.
So
And
we
also make
did
your soil richer.
exactly. So
Right.
we just
Right.
grew it, and I just kind of grew it quietly. And I saw the farmers reacting to it, like, wow, this plant is different. And then when people tasted it, they said, wow, this is powerful. So once we grew it, we just sold out in a couple of days. So now we kind of doubled the crop size that we have here right now. So we're growing double the cowpea. And so my wife would make this beautiful, she can make some from Mississippi, put a little turkey neck in there, turkey, whatever, turkey tail, and those cowpeas. And even my granddaughter, she was 2 years old. She said she can't stop eating them peas. So it even woke up her DNA and her genes as well.
Okay. I see that a lot of questions coming in, so I want to make sure and get to some of these audience questions here. Um, Let me see, where should we start here? Um, Well, a lot of people are asking, I'm going to save some of these for later. But here's some sort of specific farming questions too that I think I want to ask. One audience member is asking about opinions on GMOs in food and on the shelves, and I was wondering if either of you had any information to share for us about that.
Well, I'm just going to pivot it a little bit because
Yeah,
we
of
do have
course.
GMOs not just in our food, but also in what we drink. So when you think about going to wine, because that's where I kind of sit in,
Hmm.
we have to really be careful what we're drinking off the shelf, right? If you're
Yeah.
drinking grocery store wine, wine from a liquor store, anywhere on a corner store, it's going to have so much chemicals, dyes. It's going to be made in the most unconventional way for us to get our nutrients and actually be pure to us. And so we have to be really careful about how we approach selecting the wine off the shelf. And usually the best way to do it is get it straight from the vineyard, straight from the producer, straight from the farm. And so I just want to kind of lead with that because
Yeah.
GMOs, additives, things like that is what's actually, I believe personally, has contributed to cancer rates. Also, when you think about a lot of the situations that are occurring with what is it? It's neurological diseases and things like that that have never, been an issue generations ago, but have kind of shooting up. It's because
Yeah.
of the farming techniques and the things that are mass produced in our country. And so I feel as a consumer, we need to be really intentional, just pay that extra money to make sure that we're putting our family first and their health first.
And on
Okay.
that note, thank you for that. Bloom Ranch was established in 1891. I happen to be the third owner. And it is documented that pesticides have never, ever been used on their farm. Bloom
Wow.
Ranch has over 4,800 peach trees there. And so when
Wow.
the peaches, we have four variety of the peaches. I think there's one called the Blum Beauty that was you can only get at Bloom Ranch, and we have Cal Red O. Henry and Alberta peaches. And when you taste a real peach that has not been manipulated, some of those trees have been there for 100 years. And so when you taste it and smell a peach, I remember in Oklahoma, in the apples and peaches and plums, they smell, it makes the house
Mm,
smell
mm, mm.
very fragrant like that. When you go to the store, you look at an apple, it may look beautiful. But when you taste it, it tastes like it's just nothing there. So
Yeah.
the nutritional density can be affected significantly by how your plant or food is grown. We do use companion planting to keep the pests down. We grow with garlic and or onions and certain flowers. The marigold flowers are known to keep bugs and things away. So we intersperse our flowers and certain like lavenders to keep pests away. So we don't use pesticides at Bloom Ranch at all, or any of the farms that we have.
Thank you. Thank you very much. There are a lot of questions that follow this line here, and so I'm going to read one of them to you. For those asking about how to get started, this might be the time to take notes since there are so many questions about this. The question is, how are Black farmers' land currently being protected? I would like to purchase land to grow healthy veg and fruit and make it available to Black underserved communities. How could I get started? Can info be provided on how to start a micro farm? And where to get resources, land, and funding.
Well, I've actually been putting some information in the chat,
Great.
such as the CDFA Farmer Equity Grant program. And so that's kind of like a state grant that
Mhm.
provides priority focus to socially disadvantaged and beginning farmers. I think that's something that is great for beginners. There's also the value added producer grant. So that's for people who are already kind of producing to allow them to expand. And there was another one that I put in the chat, which I think is super important, which was the USDA micro loans, and that's designed for small, beginning or niche farmers, and they're make it simple, and they're offering up to $50,000 up to
Yeah.
access for operating expenses, equipment, and startup costs. So there are some resources that I've shared, and AI.
Yes.
And in using tools like Google and just some directories are also helpful to really just get you started and help you kind of percolate on what how to approach that so that you don't have to feel like you got to do it alone.
I want to kind of add to that by taking it a step further about once you get a farm started, you get those resources, how do you sustain it? Right. And sustainability requires a lot of creativity. As you may realize that farming experiences are trending right now online. How can you have some form of agritourism to your farm? The
Oh,
We make a nice a lot of revenue by doing tours at Bloom Ranch and just talk. They just want to see, believe it or not, people that are 45 minutes from Bloom Ranch that are coming from downtown LA, they never get an open space. So if you do have access to land, make it, add some layers of sustainability. For example, if you do grow some vegetables, talk about value addition. Can you pickle some bok choy to make sure that you extend the shelf life of it? Can we do our canned peaches? We do our peach preserves. We have about 5 different flavors of peach preserves because the harvest is only has a window of viability for the perishable. So how can you add more value to your products once you do get things going? We make our own skincare products derived from our farm. You can make serums from lavender. You can make serums and things from peaches. You can even add serums from hibiscus. We do bring in some hibiscus to add to our pressure box from Africa. So you've got to get into some of the creative parts by taking some shea butter and maybe incorporating a little bit of the peach infused jojoba oil and call it peach butter. So you in that, and so you're gonna get a lot more money off of a 4 ounce jar of, I'm gonna say, peach butter than you would to sell $20 worth of collard greens and the effort behind that. So I'm more focused on how can you add so much value to. We do have creative thinking sessions at Bloom Ranch. We'll take all the vegetables, put it on the table, and say, give me 10 products you can make from this collard green. Even the watermelon rind, you can pickle the watermelon rind. You can make watermelon rind candy. Even you can do from the leaves, you can do a pesto of the watermelon leaf. Look it online, just do watermelon leaf pesto. So this
wow.
this is the creative part of being sustainable. So that's what I could love to do a seminar on that at any given time on value
Yeah,
addition of farm produce.
fantastic. Um, I guess the final question I'm going to go with here in the interest of time, this is another one that a lot of people are asking. How can people find out about CSAs or local farms in their own area? And how do you determine Which ones are good? And how do, yeah, I'll leave it there.
Well, I've actually joined those when I was in LA, but also when I was in New York City. And I love those programs because you get to find new stuff, right? You kind of go to the
Hmm.
grocery store, you get the same produce, but then when you get CSA from local farms, you get to get what's in season, you get to get something
Yeah.
you probably would never ever buy, but now you're stuck with it and you got to figure it out. Right? So you start coming up with new recipes and things like that. And it's just a fun way. I think for me, it was just being in the community, whether it's going to
Yeah.
farmers markets, whether it's just being more like I remember when I was in New York, I had just moved there 6 months before the pandemic. And then after we started opening, well, before the pandemic, I actually saw that there was a little tent set up and I was nosy and I went over there and I didn't know what it was. And I just started inquiring and that allowed me to now to start getting involved in that community and supporting the local farmers, in northern New York, just north of the city. And so I would say your work sometimes has programs that they can share. Just searching, I think the Facebook groups are a huge one, especially when it's hyper local. And then next door is an app. I like to use technology.
Yeah.
It's convenient and
Got
easy.
to.
So next door is an app. You can actually search. Everything's filterable and searchable, and that's a good way to definitely learn how to get involved. And I you got to try it out. Not every shoe fits everybody, but the more you kind of play around with it and get accustomed, you know what you like and what's for you.
Yep, yep, yep.
Yep.
So I think that use technology. You can put in one of those AI tools, find a CSA program near me, put your zip code in, and it'll probably be more resourceful than a lot of the things that are out there right now. So I would encourage people to start with technology and put that in your search engine about a CSA program near me. And I do want to add that at Bloom Ranch, we do have a U-Pick program. So we want people to be really intimate about where their food is coming from that's going to go inside their body so they can pick their own peaches, apples, pears, and soon you'll be able to pick your own collard greens too. So get out
Oh,
there and feel what it's like to get your hands in the dirt and harvest a little bit.
fantastic. Thank you both so much. This has been a fantastic conversation. I see that we're just slightly over time, but I think that's okay.
I was going to
And
put my email address in the chat. Is that okay?
absolutely,
Just for
absolutely,
anybody who's
absolutely.
interested in learning more
Maybe,
about the work I do
That
with
maybe I
Uncork.
should do mine too.
that
And
would be
for uncorking
fantastic.
culture, you could just email me and you can learn more about the what's happening in the wine industry, black wine industry. You can also learn more about and follow the work that I'm doing with the 501(c)(3. The goal is the four pillars are funding, right? Capital,
Yep.
also education, agriculture. I think that's something that we don't have in the wine and beverage industry right now is that connection to agriculture. And the fourth thing is entrepreneurship development, because that's something from the work that I've done with the Association of African American Vintners. I realized that even though we might have, over 200 members and 60 Black wine producers in our membership, the foundational challenges is entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
understanding the business, the marketing, this how to set your sales, the actual pipeline, a supply chain for wine and how expensive it is and
Yes.
pricing your
Yes.
product right. But the biggest thing is access to resources. We don't come from four generations or three generations like most Napa and wine producers and the big
Right.
box people that you see in a grocery store. And we're first time generation. But we've been here. The first Black wine stewards were Black, right? The first wine stewards in this country were Black. The first vineyard stewards were Black. And we've been owning vineyards since the 1800s, but officially reported in 1940s. So, we've been here. We just don't know that we exist.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Relaford, would you like to give us some closing remarks as well? And drop your email in there for sure.
I just dropped my email in there. Reach out to me. I can get you a copy of Real Pharmacy, the Real Pharmacy 5 Colors Data Better Health. I just want to thank you all and AARP for putting together such an amazing program. I had no idea it was going to resonate the way that it has, but I'm not surprised. Food in your nutrition is the most important asset that you have. Find a way to be more intimate with what goes inside of your body, your health, And viability is the most important asset and predictive asset of how you can transfer not just wealth, knowledge, but also wisdom. You got to be here long enough. Some things you just has takes time. So when we pass prematurely, we leave a lot of things on the table. We leave not just money, but we leave what I call that ancestral intelligence, the real AI. Why would you want something artificial when you can get the real thing?
Yep.
I love that.
I do
I
too.
love that.
I do too. Y'all giving me a lot of gems today.
Yes.
These.
Well, you've been amazing, Dr. Jackson. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
thank you to all of the AARP California. I got to shout out Antoine Cook. He's the
Yes.
man behind the work here, along with Marissa
Absolutely. Yes.
and the people of the California chapter. But I've worked and done education with them on wine for a few years now, and I'm just happy to have a broader audience. I mean, Dr. Rutherford, what are we doing here? Because this seems like
We have to connect. We got to connect.
Yeah.
So Antoine, make sure, or we have to connect because I have the winery in Casaloche, but we need to learn more we do our own fermentation there. We have our own harvesting there. It's a big deal. We do our own bottling, our own labeling. I'm told that it's one of the only real estates that has the whole vertical thing on one plot of land, 25 acres. So
well, I need to come. We need to come. I need to come down and visit you. We need to, Dr. Jackson. We all need to come down.
we can do some. You
Figure
notice they
out
didn't want
something.
to come to the farm, they want to come to the winery. No.
I want to see the whole thing. I want to pick some collard greens. I want to eat
Yes.
Right. We can do some wine tasting first, and then we can go check out the collard.
Yes.
That's how you do it. It's all about the experience.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And you know what? I do want to say one thing. I know over time that I think people are underappreciating the power of being in nature. So me, I have morphed my business. I'm an entrepreneur and a surgeon and all that. But what I found is that COVID did something very interesting if you're paying attention. No social distancing. You can't hug anybody, can't shake them. You got to do elbow bump and hip bump and things like that. So I actually leaned into it, Angela, at the winery. I would bring my business people to the winery. So as a human being, we have all five senses. And my one jewel I want to tell our prospective farmers, let nature help get you to the finish line. Bring people there and say, taste this orange, taste this berry, smell this lavender. Make people, all the degrees they have, all that stuff goes out the window when they taste what a peach is supposed to taste like. And remember, people do business with people who make them feel good. So you can make them feel good by making the smell, taste, hear all the things that Mother Nature provides. That has been the winning formula. I'm giving you Dr. Rutherford's hack is to make people feel good about what you produce on your farm and on your land.
Well, that's a great way to end. And I want to just also challenge and call everybody. This is how you should do it. Visit a Black-owned farm. That's the Juneteenth celebration. That's how I celebrated Juneteenth when it turned 100, the 100th year of I think it was the massacre, the Black Wall Street massacre, but also when we became a federal holiday, I was in the vineyards and it was something transformative. And I think you hit it on the nose, Dr. Rutherford. That should be our new tradition is finding Black farmers and connecting. And Dr. Jackson, you did a great presentation on why that should happen.
Thank you. Thank you both so much.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Audience at home, give a round of applause for Dr. Bill Rutherford, Angela McCray. This has been a fantastic program. Thank you all for joining us. And we do hope you got something out of this morning's conversation. We have one last poll question for you all. What is one thing you will take away from this session? The value of agriculture, farming policies, greater understanding of the impact of Black farmers in America, or something else? Let us know in the poll here. And thank you all so much for joining us. And please visit our website at www.aarp.org/C-A to find more activities. You can join virtually or in person. And this ends our program today. Happy Juneteenth, everybody, and thank you so much for being with us.